Taking Heart, Finding Our Way Together, the podcast of the International Students' Conference 2024. Hey ho, it's Monday again, Monday the 11th of March. That means there are only 5 episodes until the conference, counting today. Suddenly time flies, especially because I'm getting into the routine of recording podcast episodes. This makes the week seem even shorter. I hope you still find enough time to get the important things done before you set off on your long journey. Apart from the visa, for example, airing the sleeping bag again, buying enough snacks for the trip, buying a book of Friends, and of course listening to our podcast. No, really, today it's totally worth it, because I'm talking to the inspiring gardener Brigid LeFevre. If you have already read our program carefully, you will know that she will be our second speaker at the conference. And speaking of our website, the March newsletter that has just been published is overflowing with wonderful initiatives. Today you can find this link in the video description. There's a lot to talk about with Brigid, so I shouldn't miss a moment. Dear participants, today I'm here with my guest Brigid LeFevre, and she is a gardener, and not just a gardener, but she's a very interesting person that we came along watching a documentary on YouTube. And we are so glad that we actually watched this documentary, because now, only 5 weeks from the conference, we had some Zoom meetings with her and discussed some of the topics that she will be addressing on the conference. And yeah, we talked about the topic a bit and just got to know each other. And now she's on our podcast episode. I'm really happy, and I want to welcome you. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Noel. Nice to be here.
Nice to host you. Yeah, I didn't decide yet what I want to ask you, because there are many possibilities, many possible questions I could ask you, and maybe you could also just share a bit about who you are and what are you up to regarding the conference, because I feel like we threw you into the cold water with this invitation. Maybe because it's hard to tell what this conference is all about, because our topic is wide-ranged, and also each of the students' conferences is different from the last one, which is good. But I think it would be nice if you just shared a bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Brigid, and I am currently in Portugal in the rainy northern hills. I have lived in Sweden for the last 15 years, and I moved to Sweden. In Swedish, you say on a banana peel, or en bananskal. I just happened to land there, and the timing was perfect because I wanted to learn about biodynamic agriculture. I wanted to do agriculture, and I got an internship on a great market garden there 15 years ago. So that was a big chapter of my life. And now I just moved to Portugal this year, actually. Yeah, last year. Now we're in 2024. So I moved in 2023. So that was a big move. And before that, I lived in Scotland and England, but I grew up in Northern Ireland in a Camp Hill community, which is an anthroposophically inspired community for the care of special needs people. And at the center of my Camp Hill, and usually in a Camp Hill, there's the biodynamic farm. And that has definitely been an important inspiration for me throughout the years. The memory of having the cows walking through the village and going in the morning to collect the milk, freshly milked from the cows, and going to the earth cellar to collect vegetables from the garden, and yeah, the closeness to the land. And seeing the seasons through that perspective has definitely been a big inspiration for me. Also, something that I've thought about when I think about what I want to bring to the conference.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
It was a quick biography all the way back.
Exactly. Yeah. Brigid will present our first interactive presentation on the conference. which will be on Thursday. And I'm interested in what was on your mind when you were our age, or the age of the participants, which is 16 to 20.
What was I thinking? Funny that you said this, 16 to 20, because I feel like just those years was such a journey for me. So many things happened. The directions of life took such unexpected and exciting turns. It was really, and I could see that the steps that I took after that were really, the foundations were there within those years. Many things have happened, but I remember those years very clearly because of the weight of the things which happened, the meetings which happened, the decisions which were made.
And did you travel a lot when you were this age, or were these changes or these thoughts made in the same countryside?
That's a good question. I moved. So when I was 16, I was in school. The Waldorf school that I went to, it only went up to 16, actually. So it's a different system in the UK. We had the GCSE, and then you would have to move to a conventional school to complete. You don't graduate. There was no class 12. We finished in class 11.
I see, yeah.
So I finished in class 11, and then I was going to go to a normal school, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started in an art college, which was fine. But I spoke to so many students there, and they all talked about school. It was the worst thing in the world. They hated it, school. They were like, thank God that's over. And I felt like, wow, I really don't feel that way. I loved school, like my class and the things we did, and it was such a good experience. So then I decided I would continue in Waldorf school, which meant that I had to move to England from Ireland.
Wow.
And that was because I had already started in this other school, I had to wait 1 year. So I worked in restaurants and cafes and applied for Waldorf school in England after a year. So I was 1 year older than everybody when I started class 12, but that was great. It was so that was my first move. And then after that, I never moved back to Ireland. So that was the beginning of the journey, was the decision to do class 12, actually.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds so exciting. Wow. And sometimes I question if it's necessary to move in this age for people to deal with the challenges, to deal with the questions coming up. And there's this quote from Steiner that just came to my mind, and I don't know it perfectly. But if you want to find yourself, search in the world. And if you want to find the world, search in yourself. So the young people searching really for their own for their own character and what they want to be and want to have, they go out into the world. But nowadays, that's how it is for me. I don't feel the urge to go to so many different countries. But maybe this comes from being alive in this time where everything moves so fast and you can go everywhere and everything is accessible. So actually, my backyard is nearly as exciting for me as the backyard in France where I would be living, or the backyard in England. So this conference, this really international conference with participants from over 20 countries, is kind of questioning this in myself. And I ask, for them, it is really exciting to come here. And I hope, and I suppose it will be an important step and a big memory for them. Only this travel, not the 5 days they spent here at the Goetheanum, but this travel, maybe over the ocean or over different landscapes they haven't seen before, this can change a lot, no?
Yeah, definitely. It's also really interesting that the need to move yourself into the world is very different, I think, like you say, now, but also from person to person. That what is important for one person's journey and biography is not important for another. Like the way that they can know themselves. Like a big reason why I chose to move also, I think, was because I felt like I became a bit lost in the identity that other people had given to me already then when I was 17. Like I felt very confined by what people thought of me, actually, that I should live up to an idea that other people had of me. And for me, it was important to leave that in order to know myself. I think to move into the world and to not have that reflection of something which had been built up in the eyes of others. But I also know that my friends, they didn't experience that at all. They didn't suffer from the same confinement feeling. They felt like themselves, regardless of how people saw them, I think. So do you know what I mean? Like that we have a very different way to relate to others and ourselves.
This diversity is so wonderful. It needs both, and it needs to those kind of people to come together also to help them each another.
Yeah. And that is so exciting, I think, for people coming from so many places, people who've made that decision, but also just to experience being in one place, many people who are not from that place, and to be hosted by people who are familiar with that place, like you and the organizing team. That's like a safe place to land. But that meeting where people are not confined by the story that they are living in also. Like, who are they in this meeting with someone from a different part of the world and different reality? It's very exciting.
What also is very exciting is a quote that I found from you in an interview.
Oh.
And it feels from me very similar to a quote from an US-American author by the name of Robin Wall Kimmerer. Maybe you know her.
I do. Yes.
And your quote is one sentence and hers is three. But maybe we can find out the similarity in this, because through this, I think we could touch a bit on the topic, not only of the conference at all, which is taking heart and so wide-ranged, but the topic that you will speak about on the ISC. And yours is, I don't want to spend too much time to make the future before it happens. I don't know if you remember saying this. I heard it in an interview. And the quote from Robin Wall Kimmerer is a bit longer, like this. Action on behalf of life transforms. Because the relationship between self and the world is reciprocal, it is not a question of first getting enlightened or saved and then acting. As we work to heal the earth heals us.
Yes, that's very poetic. That's nice that you made that connection. I appreciate that.
Both of them have this feeling of immediate action and being addressed immediately, not waiting for the future, but living in the present time and changing things in the present time, in the actual moment.
Yes, indeed. The only time that we have, the present moment. I feel like another quote came to me now about the future, but I can't remember where I saw it. But I feel like it was this morning. But the future is a dead thing. The future is not. The present is like all life is here. And yeah, no, I'm not gonna, I can't get anywhere else because I'm trying to remember where I saw the quote. But I thought that was, I guess, the same in a way.
This is something that I really like about your work, to the point that I know it from your internet appearances, that you always address the immediate action that we are possible to make. And the actual work being done in the world as a really precious kind of present you can give to the world.
Yeah. Now I thought about, or at the moment I'm in Portugal and I've recently moved here. So I don't have, like when I made this documentary, I had a very established place and a garden, and the season was laid out in front of me, kind of. So even if it was very present, there was this definite future, actually. Like I sow a seed and I have an idea of when it will grow, when I will move it from this pot into another one, when it will be placed out into the field, when it will be harvested. So at the same time as the action of sowing, I also had that future idea. And now it's actually not like that. I'm just moved onto a piece of land and I have a small garden. I'm learning what that means in Portugal, because in Sweden, you can only sow most things once. The season is very short. If you want cabbage, you have to sow it in, I'm going to say it wrong, April, and you'll harvest it in October. And you can't have 5 of those. But in Portugal, because it's very warm as such, temperate all the time, the season is very different. The other things which are eating my cabbages are also very different than the things I was used to in Sweden. So there's, yeah, a different dynamic. And I am not as grounded in time, I guess, here. So something that I have been finding a lot of comfort in and joy in is the reciprocity of contact with nature as it is. Like, for example, now there's a lot of flowers already here. And there's this one plant called dead nettle, which is not a plant which I've had very much contact with, even though it's everywhere in Sweden also, but there isn't carpets of it like there is here. And it started flowering already a couple of weeks ago. And I have the possibility and the time to just stand in front of it and watch. And that look at plants, that feels like reciprocity to me. Like it's like you said with green, that I'm being given, it's like this radiation of gift that I get from standing in front of the flowers, but also to see all the bumblebees, an unbelievable amount of wild bees and different kinds moving through and having this communion with these flowers. So there's the reciprocity with me, and then between the flowers and the bees. And yeah, to be part of that dynamic moment feels like action, actually. And that it's an action which people easily overlook, that Robin Wall Kimmerer makes people aware of, I think, also in her writing.
Yeah.
That what if nature loves you back? What if nature is always showing you love? Like, how will you act in the world if that's the case? And if you take those moments just to look, I think it's underestimated. Also, I think of a book about bumblebees, actually. It's called A Sting in the Tail. But he has done a lot of research about bumblebees and butterflies and the wildlife, especially in the United Kingdom. And he talks a lot about research through observation, that's actually disappeared from scientific research, that people don't just sit and watch a flower long enough to see how a bumblebee behaves on it.
Yes.
So even for science, this moment of me connecting to nature by time and looking it's a very broad action. It gives me well-being. I know that life is happening, and also it can be very important for scientific research.
And through this, I would say, Goetheanistic approach in science, you really get this feeling of awe. You fall in love with this, and I feel suddenly very small looking at the bee.
Mm.
And I think this is a really, really important feeling that also I want young people to experience, because there's also so much freedom you feel in just being on this planet Earth with so many other forms of life, that you're not the only one. We would be so lonely.
No, we're not the most important.
No.
I was listening to a podcast this morning, actually, with Vandana Shiva. And it was a conversation between her and Matthias Olsson that made that documentary also about me and the garden. She has written the foreword for the new edition of the biodynamic lectures in French. So they're going to publish a new one, and she's written the foreword for that. And she pointed out, because the question was about the esoteric aspects of biodynamics and how that can be difficult for some people to grasp. And she said that she felt like a thing that has been overlooked in biodynamic agriculture, also within the movement, I think, is that in the lectures, Rudolf Steiner talks so much about looking, like you said, to know myself, I look out, and to know the world, I look in. But that in agriculture, the most important thing is to look with love and respect, and to know that, to see the wisdom of nature, and that everything is one, that those aspects are maybe not brought to the front enough when people read the biodynamic lectures, that the focus is often on the esoteric and not as much on love and respect for nature.
Yes.
I don't see how I got there from what you said, though, but that's okay.
I think I do.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Thank you for the anecdote. And an aspect that is also connected to this action in the world, and why I think this is important to address on the conference, and why I think you are the really perfect contributor for this, is that the youth, and I can tell by my own experience, is really overwhelmed by not just all the crises in the world, but also by all the possibilities they have, and also all the solutions they could take to tackle all the crises in the world. There's just not enough resource to deal with all of this offering to do something, and in the end, you do nothing. This is how many people end up, and especially the youth. So they feel anxiety looking at this broad range of possibilities and crises, and turn away and do something that doesn't make them feel better at all. And sometimes I think it is really healthy to be humble and just say, okay, I can't do everything, but I will start with this special thing and it will grow. And if you do one good thing, that's my opinion and experience, it will touch on two more good things, and they will touch on two more good things, and so on. If you just start humble with one thing, it will grow.
That anxiety, I don't want to make you feel more anxious, but I feel that very often still. Exactly those things that you said, that there is so much crisis, there are so many things I could be doing, possible solutions. Like I'm absolutely no means free from those things, but I have that maybe with time that you can see that as a, like I'm going to say it now, I don't know why, but menstrual cycle has just come up for me. At least half of the audience will relate to this as women, that that it changes, like it depends also which woman you are and which body, but that throughout the month you have a different experiences of the world around you. And at certain points in the month, for example, I can have enormous amount of energy to do. And then at other times of the month, I can only experience those crises and feel overwhelmed and inhibited by that. But over time, I can recognize those patterns. And that anxiety, I also see as a pattern. So I can see, okay, now I'm feeling anxiety and I don't know what to do, but I can see it as a phenomenon. I can look at it from the outside, not as a problem to be solved, as an experience by itself. And I would actually group those three things together, because I do in my head, just the ones you said. The crisis, all the things I could do, that I should do, and that creates nothing. That creates zero action, and that those are like one group, and you can like, okay, this group, that's what's happening for me now. That's interesting. And what I can do is, luckily in my situation, I can go out and chop wood. I can cut some branches so they're ready for the wood chipper. I can rake leaves, things which are very good to do because I'm outside and there's things which I want to get done anyway, but that don't demand of me any kind of prestige. Like, it's not work where I can think, finally, I'm going to prove to Monsanto that GMO is bad. No, I'm just here with my rake, moving my body.
Right. Yeah.
Because even in those moments, actually, I noticed that sometimes I can't see the beauty of flowers, for example. And I have also heard that from other people when they experience a lot of anxiety, that it's difficult to see anything. Like, you can't look at a tree. All you can see is inside. And then to have some activity, to take a walk, the most mundane thing is, I think, magic. Even like sometimes you're like, oh, the trees. And other times you're walking and you're still only seeing inside and seeing the anxiety. But really, you are still moving through those trees. You're still breathing with them, putting your feet on the earth. Your eyes are experiencing different movements of light. And like, even if you don't think the thought, oh, it's so beautiful, there's so much healing happening there.
Wow. Thank you. That's right. I don't want to add anything to that.
Okay.
That was a very beautiful ending sentence for this podcast. And if I was a listener, I would be looking forward so much to your lecture. Thank you, Brigid.
Thank you so much. A really nice conversation.